I want to make a quick video and explain artificial intelligence to you. These people walking for exercise. This is the main difference that's coming to the world within the next decade by 2035. Those people don't value their life very much, I'll tell you that. They just walked up to that crosswalk. I was coming through there 30 miles an hour. They pushed the button and expect you to stop, which I did. You go to a crosswalk, you might want to let the cars go by before you try to cross. Artificial intelligence is very simple to explain. 50 years ago, people had to figure out everything on their own, okay? In 1970. In 2020, you could go to the internet and ask Google to show you how to do it, or show you a better way to do it, but you had to type in. So in 1970, you had to go down and get plans or something and get a buddy who had experience, or you had to figure out how to build your house. For example, in 2020, even if you don't know anything about it, you can ask Google and they will show you 100 videos on how to build a house. And you could learn right there how to build a house. But you, in 2020, this is the internet, you had to ask the question, how do I build a house? How do I put the boards down? What is a nail? What is a nail gun? Where do I get a nail gun? You had to ask the question. Whatever the question was. Okay, now in 2025, 26 to 2030, 32, 35, let me explain the difference between artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is now going to tell you what you should be asking. So in 2020, you say, how do I build a deck on my house? In 2030, that's all going away. The artificial intelligence is going to tell you what to ask. That's where we're headed right now. So, like in 1970, you had to use 100% of your brain to figure it out. In 2025, you had to use 60% of your brain to ask the right questions and do the research. In 2030, you have to use 20% of your brain because artificial intelligence will be asking or telling you what to ask. So in January of this year, 2025, there was no artificial intelligence on my phone. It was Google. And I had to type into the Google search engine whatever I wanted. Now, in January of 2026, I can still type it in, and below that it says AI mode. Every day they're asking me like 27 things that I have to know about. Now I'm older, I totally ignore it. I don't want to know any of these things. And it asks me questions all day long, collecting information about every single thing I do. Even it's collecting information about when I log on, what time do I check the time, when do I check the weather. And now it tells me, do you want to know about how many stripes are on a zebra in Africa? And it gives me like 10 choices of things I should be looking at. And that's what it's doing now. The computer, well, first of all, the computer never existed when I was a kid. Now the computer exists and I use it to better my life. Well, now, today, the computer is going to tell me what I should be doing in life. Now, some of you have no problem with that. You're like, oh yeah, what's wrong with that? Well, you'll find out what's wrong with it, because you will never know how to add, subtract, multiply, read, or write ever again. And you say, well, the computer will give me more choices. That's simply not true. The computer now is going to zero in on just the things you're doing and only give you choices of those things. You know, the Bible says very clearly, in the last days, men will surround themselves by things or topics that their itching ears want to hear. In other words, the Bible says very clearly, in the last days, which we're in, and we're finding out it's machines, you're being surrounded on the internet by the things you're interested in, only the things you want to hear. And so you personally are getting fewer and fewer and fewer choices. That's what the problem was about 10 years ago. They kept saying Google is monopolizing the search engine. When's the last time you went 60 pages down the search engine to look for something? Never. Nobody does that. Not unless you're a crazy person. That's why businesses online that make it online, they say if you're not on the first page, you won't make it. That's why now they put the ads for businesses above the search. So you got to pay an extreme price to get that top ad on when someone searches electric bicycles. You want to be the company that your ad is above the search, the number one ad that always comes up, and then you will be guaranteed to be successful. Well, as long as you got a good product, a good price, and all that. So I just explained artificial intelligence to you. You don't have to know anything else about it. It's going to appear in your life, in everyone's life, in a way that's now telling you what you should be doing, what you should be thinking, and it's going to give you the answer to do it. If you don't believe me, go to artificial intelligence right now and ask, what should I have $500, what should I spend it on right now? It's a very good question. The whole world's about money, right? I mean, that's how economies go. Go and ask it. Don't say, what investment should I buy? What clothing should I buy? What should I do to my house with $500? No, don't give it any of that kind of information. Just say, I have $500. What should I buy right now with my $500? And just leave all it open to them, and you'll see what happens. What it's doing, it's zeroing in on what you personally, it thinks you like, but in the future, you see, because it's in a transition now, in the future, it's going to tell you what you like. That's the difference that we're seeing coming up right now. In the future, artificial intelligence is going to tell you what you like. So in the future, you will not have to say, I have $500. What should I spend it on? No, it'll come to you whether you asked or not. If you have $500, this is what you should spend it on. Now, you're already seeing that with Lulu.com. You know, the people that shop in Lulu, you know, the Chinese company. What do their ads say? If you have $25, we will send you $100 worth of free merchandise for only $25. If you have $25, we'll send you $100 worth of free merchandise right now. It's telling you what to do. And they will give you $100 worth of free merchandise, because they know once they get you to sign up, then they have you in the future. I remember I got a AT&T phone 4 years ago, and the guy told me $51 a month, unlimited everything. I said, okay, you know, sounds good. So I signed up. I mean, my old phone actually fell into the ocean, so I needed a phone. I went to Walmart. To get this phone. There's the ocean down there. And so I was very happy that he was willing to sign me up and do it all and do all the work. I actually gave the guy a $20 tip, which he said he wasn't supposed to take. But I told him, hey, take it or I'm going to be offended. Now, he didn't work for Walmart. He was an independent contractor. So 3 months later, Walmart said, we're not having those guys here anymore. We'll do it ourselves. 3 months later, I couldn't even get a hold of anyone. Okay, so I'm on AT&T. Then I get an offer in the mail. If you go paperless... Now, it has to be, I have it set up automatically on a card I have. If you go paperless, we will give you $10 a month off. So I called, I said, okay, I'll go paperless. They said, okay. They let me save $10 a month for 2 months. And they raised the price of my phone $11. So now I'm paying $1 more than when I started. Okay, all right, okay. And over the last 3 years, they've raised the price of my phone, my monthly phone, 3 times. Everything they told me to get me to sign up was a complete lie. And then I actually got a message on my phone about a year ago that said, we no longer offer discounts for going paperless. That is how they raised the price the first time. And then they just got bold and said, well, he's staying with us. We're just going to raise the price every year. So now I'm paying I went from like $50 a month to now it's like $65 a month. And I don't switch. I don't want to go through it. And it's only an extra, like $10 a month. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to freak out for $10. The guy who signed me up told me I could trade my phone in for a different phone anytime I wanted. Late last year, I went down to the AT&T place in Coos Bay, Oregon. I said, so I was told when I could trade it in and get it. They looked up the number and said, that phone is no longer available for trade-ins. Oh, my goodness. So then later this year, I had to call customer service for a reason on my phone. It told me you have a wait time of 25 minutes. Now the people you're calling, they're in their house. They're working at home. They're just customer service representatives out of their house now. You don't even go to an AT&T person. And the lady that answered the phone, I could tell she was like in her pajamas with kids in the background, and they were like getting dinner ready or something. I'm not kidding. And I was very nice, because I'll say whatever they want me to say so I can get through the call and receive what I'm calling for. This lady ended up getting kind of angry at me. And then, I didn't get angry. I just said, this is all I want. And how do we do that? And she was kind of frustrated with the people in the background at her house while she was working. So that's where we are today. But in the future, artificial intelligence is going to call me. They'll send me an email or a text message that says, would you like to get an upgraded phone at a lower price and we'll mail it to your address within 72 hours? Just push yes and type in your address, and artificial intelligence will do, and all these customer service jobs are going to go away. And that's what I'm saying. See, right now, I have to proactively, well, in 1970, I had to go down to Kmart, believe it or not, and buy a phone and go home and hook it up to my wall. And then I had to call, my parents had to call AT&T, or, that's all there was. And they had to say, can you hook up our phone? And a guy had to come to our house in our kitchen, walk in out of his work truck. That's all he did for a living, a phone technician, and turn our phone on. And he had to call the operator with special information and get our phone turned on. Well, the AT&T, switchboard. And then after about a half hour, we gave him like some banana bread or whatever. And he's like, thank you, and left. Well, today in 2020 to 2025, you just have to call someone and they'll send you a phone and everything. You can do the whole thing off the internet. They'll have it all set up and everything. But you have to call. In 2030, there won't be anyone to call. A machine is going to call you. Artificial intelligence is going to call you and send you a message with some photos and an ad. Would you like a new phone for $10 a month less? Now, some people, younger people, well, the younger you are, the more you think that's a good idea. But can you see, 25 years from now, can you just imagine that you are no longer making any of your own decisions? You are no longer making your own decisions. Like even on let's say they still have videos in 25 years, and instead of leaving a comment, you tell artificial intelligence, leave a clever comment on this video on behalf of my channel, and then you just leave, and artificial intelligence just did the work for you. Well, let me tell you this. When you get to the point in life to where your hands are no longer planting your garden and growing your potatoes and your vegetables, and your hands are no longer doing your laundry, and your hands are no longer shopping, and your hands are no longer putting your own groceries away, and your hands are having all your food delivered to you, and then someone else and you are no longer deciding where you're going to live. You see, right now you have to drive around in the town you are, and you have to personally decide. You have to personally decide. You have to drive around and say, okay, here's a bunch of apartments we looked at. Which you pick the top 3 or 4 or 5 you like the best, the neighborhood. Now you're going to decide which place you want to live at. But in 15 years, that artificial intelligence is going to tell you where to live. You say, well, what's wrong with that? Okay, well, the same's with your job. Right now, you get to decide which job I'd like to work at. You know, the movie 1984 is coming true. Where machines and the government, you know, the people who control the machines control you. Why do you think people like Elon Musk, you know, he doesn't want it, but he says, I want it. Jeff Bezos wants it. Donald Trump wants it. Everyone in charge and control of part of your life now wants artificial intelligence. Why? So they can gain more control of you. These people don't think like you and I do. They don't think like middle-class people and lower middle-class people. They think right now, I am worth $20 billion by having 100,000 customers. So if I could get 200,000 customers, I would be worth $40 billion. That's how they think from the moment they get up until the time they go to bed at night, and they even dream about it while they're sleeping. They're not saying, how do we save $10 a month on our electric bill, like middle-class people and like lower middle-class people think. No, they're thinking like the top 25% of wealthiest people in America. That's from about 150,000 on up. So everybody making less than that is the bottom 75%. We're all trying to survive and make a better life. They're going to use artificial intelligence to control your choices. That's what's going to happen. Now, I'm a Christian. This is a Christian channel. I believe the rapture is coming within 15 years myself. So I don't think this will get too far out of hand in 15 years myself. That's just my opinion. I got no proof it's happening, but I mean, at that time. So for those of you who say, I need more artificial intelligence, you just watch artificial intelligence and how you use it in the future. Somebody else is telling you the choices you should make. Somebody else is telling you what you should buy and purchase. Somebody else a machine is going to tell you where to take your vacation and how to take your vacation. You know, I'll just end the video with that there. You know, when I was a young man, my wife and I would get in the car. We didn't even know if the car was going to make it on the trip. And we had to take a Rand McNally map with us and a cooler full of food and, you know, like soda pops back then. And there was always a place you could stop and get a pizza made somewhere. And we had to find a motel that was like, you know, $25. And gas was only about $1.50. And we had to look at the map and make all our own choices and what we were going to do, where we were going to sleep, all this stuff. Wow, that was funny. I rolled my window down to ask those people a question, and that lady was underneath her umbrella. And when I just said, "Excuse me." I thought she just jumped about 10 foot off the ground. She did ah! Because her face was, she didn't even notice I was sitting here in my car because the umbrella was down over her eyes. Whoa, that's pretty strange. When you don't even notice a person standing right next to you, or sitting, in this case, sitting right next to you, you completely, she flipped out. Her husband started laughing. So that's what I'm saying. So we're on this trip, you see, and we had to make these decisions, and it was more personal. It was fun. We did all this stuff. Today, you would have to, if you're going to take a trip, you would have to do all the research on Google, but then you would get to decide. It's not near as much fun as when we used to travel. Now, you don't know the difference. Well, I had to stop the camera there, but so in the future, now what I was going to say is, because you're young and you've never lived any other way, you're not stupid, you're not lazy, you just don't know that there was a better way before you were born. You've heard your grandparents talk about it. You've heard your parents kind of talk about it, but your parents are probably millennials who have mostly been on video games and, technology since they were 5 years old. I'm a baby boomer. I didn't even have a cell phone till I was 50. I didn't have a computer till I was 55. So, yeah. You think that artificial intelligence is going to be the best way. And you don't realize over the last 2 generations, I'm the grandparent. So my children and my grandchildren, like my son, my child, 45 years old, would think his way with Google is the best way. And my grandchildren are going to think artificial intelligence telling you what to do is the best way. Let me explain it to you this way. When we went to a national park when I was a kid, there was no charge. There was no rules and regulations. And there was very few problems. There was no problems. There was very few forest fires back then. Everybody used their own thinking, their own common sense. Everybody was perfectly fine. And there was no charge. And motels were $17 a night. And some states never even required a fishing license, nothing. It was awesome. You could literally just get in an old Chevy Impala and drive around endlessly in America. You could pull up to a farmer's house anywhere in America and say, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" 99.9% of them would come out and say, "Yeah, sure." It was awesome. Totally. You could pull off the side of the road and sleep for 5 hours. No policeman would stop and ask what you're doing. Nobody. They'd say, "Well, yeah, he's taking a nap. He's on a road trip." They would just look at your out-of-state plate, say he must be on a road trip. Well, now my son has never really experienced that much since he's like 15 years old. It's all about, if you're on a road trip and your parents are driving, you're not looking out the window, you're staring at a video game, a little Atari Game Boy or something. Or instead of just looking through a pair of binoculars at something, you got to have some, video camera zoom lens. And And you're not really experiencing and enjoying, a herd of buffalo, say. Like at in South Dakota there or something. So now, my grandkids, artificial intelligence is going to tell you what to do. And you think it's good. They're going to say, would you like to go see a herd of buffalo Would you like to go see a herd of buffalo at Mount Rushmore? And here's what you're going to hear. We can make you an appointment to go see them. We will track the buffalo. We'll tell you where to be. We can make you an appointment, and the state is only going to charge you $54 for the permit. And we can just take it right out of your debit card, put it on your other credit card. What do you want to do? Do you want to pay the $54 and make the payments over 6 months? Just push yes, and we will do everything for you. And you say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, there's no spontaneity in life. We saw the buffalo for free. Now you're going to have to pay $54 for your family to see the buffalo in 5 or 6 years. I've been saying this ever since I've been making these videos, like 10 years on like 4 channels ago. The channels don't even exist anymore because everything changed so much. I made a channel on YouTube once, and then I worked on it for like 2 years, and then they told me, we're canceling your channel because we don't allow that anymore. And I was like, huh? And they just canceled my channel for me. And I've never seen it since. And I couldn't, this was back before they would even retrieve any of your videos or anything. They just canceled it. And I had like 3,000 videos on there. They just completely canceled it with no explanation. And I'm like, okay. And which is funny because the videos, some of the videos I was making, they now allow those videos. So it's like when they switched the child videos. Now you have to say, is this video for children when you make a video? Because the federal government sued them and said, you can't have anyone making any content with children on it that would, which is very ironic, which would make a child, where you're telling a child what they should think, which is really ironic. Because artificial intelligence is only going to be doing one thing, telling your child what they should think. So you, my grandchildren, they are not going to know any difference. They're only going to know that artificial intelligence should tell me what I'm supposed to do. And they're really in the future. Now, I've said this about national parks. When I was young, it was pretty much all free everywhere you went. I said, when we get older, they're going to charge enormous amounts to get into parks and camp in parks. And back then it was, national parks, local parks, state parks, it was first come, first serve. Now it's not like that. You have to have a reservation even in a local park around here. So that has taken away everybody's, like the local people. Like if I want to go down to Honeyman here on the 4th of July, good luck. I better have a reservation because everybody from Eugene is already booked it 6 months in advance. There won't even be a single spot available when I get down there. So if I wanted to go down there on the 4th of July, I couldn't do it if I didn't have a reservation. Well, then I said, national parks and state parks, they're going to go from reservation and charging you a lot of money. Now it's up to $50 for one night. When I was there, it was free because you were an American citizen. True story. You just don't believe it. When I moved here to the Oregon coast to spend a night in the campground was $6 23 years ago. Today it's like $46 in some places. Okay, that's what I said. So in the future, they're going to double the price, and you'll have to have a reservation and a guide. They're talking about it already. They're saying we're going to have to limit the number of people that come into the park every year. You know, for the trees and the animals and the air and, you know, that rock over there on the right side of the road. We're going to have to limit. Now, what they'll do is 50% of you won't be, they're going to do this in Yellowstone quicker than you think. They're already talking about limiting the number of visitors every year. And what's going to happen is you're going to go and you're not, and then eventually you won't be able to drive in the park. You will go and get on a bus. You will park your car outside of the park, which you will have to pay $30 a day to park, to have someone stand there and watch your car. And then they will put you on a bus and drive you into the park. And you will be on a guided tour in the future. No spontaneousness. And that's what our artificial intelligence is bringing. You no longer will be able to decide what you're going to do. It will tell you what you should be doing. And if you don't want to do it that way, then you just won't do it. Now imagine my great-grandkids. If the Lord tarries, you know, waits for 30 years, imagine my great-grandkids in 30 or 40 years from now trying to take their family to the park. And it'll be like you have to sign up, you know, 1 year in advance and pay 1 year in advance, non-refundable. And you only have like an 18-hour window to visit this park. So if that's what you want, that's what you're getting. Now, that's what I'm saying. My great-grandkids will be like, well, what else is there? That's the only option. That's the only option. They will never even imagine a world where you could just drive into a national park and pay nothing and find a campground and sit there and catch some fish and eat the fish and leave. They would never even consider that is one of the options.